Hey, what is going on, guys? This is the SS Ultimate Goku back with another video. And, oh boy. Oh boy, it's heating up now. And, yeah. Yours truly, your boy got it right. So for anybody who doesn't remember, back in August of last year when the stadium talk was, everyone was talking about what was going to happen, what they're going to do. I made an hour-long video talking about the Browns situational stadium and the Bears situational stadium because these are the two hot stadium talks uh, for the NFL right now going into the future. And obviously, there's going to be more talks for more stadiums going forward. I heard last year grumblings about the Jets possibly going back to New York. I don't know how serious that is, or the Queens or whatever. I don't know how serious that is, but it's something that might come up uh, in the next couple years, maybe. I heard talks about the Broncos. I'm sure the Broncos talk's going to heat up as well at some point, but I don't expect it to be something that's seriously talked about until next offseason. We'll probably hear a little bit this offseason, but we're probably not going to hear big strides about it until next year. But the stadiums that are really, really ramping up are the Cleveland Browns and the Chicago Bears stadium situations. And so last offseason, at the end of last offseason, I talked about both these stadiums and what was going to happen. Now, when I talked about the Cleveland Browns, I said that we're probably going to hear something early on the season, which was going to really ramp this up and was going to probably be a damper to the season. Now, obviously, there were other issues with Deshaun Watson's controversy and his poor play and his contract status. Ended up also hindering the season, but of course they made the announcement. I think it was like in week 5 that they made the decision that they were going to move the team to Brook Park. That they had made their decision. There was two options. They were either going to move the team to Brook Park or they were going to renovate the existing stadium. Now, I had talked about the Art Modell rule. I had explained certain situations. And I said that this was probably going to happen where they were probably going to announce that they were going to do this, and then the Cleveland was probably going to sue. Now, the Browns ended up suing, and then I think the Cleveland answered the lawsuit and obviously want to countersue because the owner wants the clarification of the Art Modell rule, which was in effect in '96. But as of today, at the early stages of the playoffs this year, the Browns are not in the playoffs, but in the early stages of the playoffs, the Browns have announced, or not Browns, sorry, the city of Cleveland has announced that they are now doing a lawsuit against the team, invoking the Art Modell rule officially now. And they are invoking it because under the description, and I'm going to get to some other things too that I think a lot of people just don't seem to understand about this whole agreement of the Cleveland Browns being resurrected in 1999, that a lot of people aren't taking this into a factor. Okay, so the Art Modell rule was created in 1996 after Art Modell decided to move the team or announce that he was moving the team for the 96 season in the middle of 1995 season. How ironic how that all transpired this year. And that he was going to move the team to Baltimore. Obviously, this pissed off the city of Cleveland, and they sued, and they ended up settling, which led to the Browns being able to keep the team history as well as the team name, the colors, everything, the logo, all that stuff. They were able to keep all that. They even got to keep the trophy, the NFL championship trophy that the Cleveland Browns won in 1964 under Art Modell's ownership. That stayed in Cleveland as well. That did not come to Baltimore, despite Art Modell still controlling the franchise just not all the other stuff. He controlled the franchise, but didn't have a team name anymore, so that's why the Ravens were created. For that franchise, he had the existing draft picks and the existing rosters and staff that were still there, that weren't fired or were free agents. So all those went to Baltimore, and then they became the Ravens. Cleveland then were recreated, or the Cleveland Browns were recreated, or I guess resurrected in 1999. Technically an expansion team, but not an expansion team since they were still technically the old Cleveland Browns under the agreement they made with the city of Cleveland and the NFL. And the NFL made an agreement with the city of Cleveland that when the Browns came back, that they would never not leave the city of Cleveland. This was like an actual agreement that they made that they would stay in Cleveland. And then, of course, the Art Modell rule, that was created in 96 shortly after that, also kept this reinforced, is that no team with that gets taxpayer stadium dollars, owner that gets tax stadium, funding, is allowed to move the team out of that specific location that they are in. And this also applies to any Ohio team. Not just the Cleveland Browns. This technically could apply to the Cincinnati Bengals, too, if the Bengals decided to move, if they didn't get the stadium deal that they wanted, because obviously they're looking at a new stadium as well in the future. Which also takes into another count that I think a lot of people are not looking at this avenue either, because a lot of people just think that the governor, because the governor is a Republican, okay, that the governor is just going to give everything the owner wants, even though the county in the city of Cleveland and Brook Park has said they're not giving any funding unless it's in the city of Cleveland. And they also, the mayors obviously, are not going to work together on this because the county just said they're not going to work together. So yeah, you could possibly get the governor to be on board with this because he is a Republican. But at the same time, if you're the governor, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican, do you want to be known as the guy who forced your team out of the city? And I'm not talking about because, out of in general, the state or whatever, obviously I'm sure the governor is going to have to come to grips with this. And also, again, the Cincinnati Bengals, in a couple of years, they're going to be in the same situation where they're going to want money too. So I don't know if the governor is going to want to do this, because it's like, hey, if I give these guys fundings, then the other football team that's in Ohio is going to want one in a couple of years, and we're probably not going to have the money to give. And then you got these legalities with the rule, with the Art Modell rule. I don't know, and that's where I think it's so unique. And I don't know what the governor – I think the governor's stance was he wants it to be in Brook Park. But I don't know if he's going to want to deal with that headache. I don't know if he's going to want to deal with it, or whoever the new governor – because I think he's term limited as well in 2 years. I remember them saying that in one of the videos when they were talking about the breakdown of this whole stadium situation. I don't know if a governor is going to want to have to deal with that, So I feel like the governor is going to probably just let them deal it out because he knows it's a court issue now because of the law. So I feel like the governor is just going to let them, the city of Cleveland and the Browns, figure it out themselves. That's just my opinion. I mean, that doesn't mean that's what he's going to do. He or she is going to do. Whoever the new governor will be, in 2 years, because it probably will be his or her decision. Because the lease is not up until 2028. So this is going to be an issue that's going to be going on for a couple of years, because can they even start making a new stadium until the lease is up? Because that's another issue with the Art Modell law, is that it's worded in a way where they can't get tax funding. They can't, like, the owner cannot accept tax funding unless, um, they make the agreement and the commitment to the stadium. So he got, like, I think they were saying he's got like $315 million in tax fund in taxpayer dollars or whatever. Um, because that is under the agreement of the law. Is that, like, as long as are leased to this stadium in Ohio, you are allowed to get tax fund when um, you are leasing the stadium from us. But because they're in a situation where um, like, he wants to leave the stadium and go to and make another stadium with more taxpayer dollars. This is where the problem is, because he made an agreement. And by the way, before people say, because some people are saying, oh, what does it matter? Let them move. Let us have a better state. Because I've heard some idiot comment takes like this, and they're taking money away, and they're basically not going to honor it. That's the problem. And then they're going to go take more taxpayer money to build a new stadium. That is, and again, I don't think stadiums should be funded by any taxpayer money, first and foremost. I just want to be clear about that. But obviously, I know that's unrealistic. I mean, when the Buffalo Bills were up for a stadium deal, I am a Packers fan, obviously, but I live within that area. When that whole deal was coming up, they basically gave everything they wanted. They did go for an outdoor stadium in Orchard Park, which was the cheapest route, by the way. A dome would have costed more. Like, there were some people in Western New York that thought, like, that it should go in downtown Buffalo, which would have been stupid, by the way, because it would have cost even more taxpayer money if we would have done an outdoor stadium downtown. And it would have been even more than that if we would have gone to a dome or a retractable roof downtown. Doing it in Orchard Park was actually cheaper. But the cheapest route was obviously doing it outdoors. Now, of course, Bills fans mostly wanted that anyways, so it ended up being a win-win for the local officials as well as, everybody else, including, and actually the owner actually wanted it outdoors and in Orchard Park as well anyways. So in a way, it ended up going the way everybody wanted it anyways. But again, but here's the thing too. Jimmy Haslam is not the Pagulas. See, Pagula is a local, like, he lives in Buffalo. Like, he grew up in Buffalo. He's local. So he actually understands that concept, which is why he wanted it that way. See, he has a different perspective than Jimmy Haslam. Jimmy Haslam isn't from Cleveland. All right? He isn't from Cleveland, so he doesn't understand the same thing as the Pagulas do. Okay? Because they're local to that market. So that's another thing that I think it was so easy for them to get it. But even then, in the end, the owner not only got the ideal location, what everybody wanted anyways, outdoors, but he also got, more taxpayer dollars to pay for it, which I didn't like as a taxpayer, essentially. So I hated that. Like, they should have given us like at least discounts on, like, food or something. I know some of the people at the time, some of the local government officials were actually saying this, that they wanted that to happen, but of course it didn't end up happening. But this didn't. Now, this is definitely not going to happen in Cleveland. And like I said, I don't think it should happen, but it's unrealistic, obviously. We know it's going to happen. We know they're going to get some portion of taxpayer dollars, even though they shouldn't. I just want to say that on the record. I don't think they should get any of it, but unfortunately, that's the reality of the situation. But I don't think they should get 100% of it. I don't even think they should get 50 of it, because they want to do like 50-50 right now. That's what Jimmy Haslam's idea right now is. He wants to do 50-50, 50-50 split because he knows he can't get it all paid by taxpayer dollars. So he's now trying to be like, well, what about 50-50? And I say no to that, and I'm sure a lot of people should say no to that. There are also some people that wanted to go to Brook Park, but just don't want to pay for the taxpayer dollars too. That was another thing that I had heard was like, yeah, we want it in Brook Park, but only if Jimmy Haslam pays all for it. Which, by the way, if he does that, go ahead. If he's willing to front the bill for all of it, I mean, there's no discussion I can really have at that point about it, except for the city of Cleveland fighting it in court. There's no discussion. If he wants to pay for it all himself, which he should anyways because he's a billionaire, but if he wants to pay for it himself, then I can't stop him at that point because it's like, hey, you're funding the bill. That's fine. But the city of Cleveland is suing mainly because they have the Art Modell law, which, again, is different from other markets. Some people are saying, well, the New Jersey Giants, the New Jersey Jets, because they don't actually play in New York City. The Cowboys don't even play in Dallas anymore. San Francisco don't play in San Francisco anymore. There's a lot of teams, and obviously the Buffalo Bills haven't played actually in Buffalo since 1970. So they've played in Orchard Park, which isn't that far away from Buffalo. It's about like 15-20 minute drive. Maybe a little less. But it's not that far. It's not a far away drive, and it's an ideal area too. It's not in down. I like that Buffalo isn't. I like that the Bill Stadium isn't in downtown because it would be a zoo to get anywhere with that. I actually like that it's not downtown. Because I've been there a couple times when the Packers have come to town. Once every 8 years, that they've come to town. And I like the stadium in the location that it's at. Like, I don't like that it's. I would hate that it be in downtown because it would be too crowded and stuff like that. It would be ridiculous to get through. So I like that. But the thing with the thing with Cleveland is it's always been downtown. It's always since the original stadium that was there that they tore down to build this stadium during the 3-year time that the team was suspended for after the Ravens were created. They basically just rebuilt it right there where the new stadium sits. And that's where it's always been. And again, Cleveland has come up with renderings for a possible location in I think an airport site that they had or something. But obviously that didn't satisfy. That did not satisfy obviously Jimmy Haslam or anybody else. But again, the way this comes down, because again, the Browns are suing the city of Cleveland for clarification of the Art Modell law. What does the Art Modell law actually apply to? Is it just, they have to stay in the state? Or does it mean that they can't move anywhere outside of the city guidelines? You know what I'm saying? That's what the argument here is. And Art Modell wants it to either be declared Jimmy Haslam wants to either be declared unconstitutional or that it only applies to not being able to move it out of state, the team out of state. But the city of Cleveland is fighting the argument that it does mean the city boundaries, which I do believe it means the city boundaries because I read the language of the law. Again, I'm not a lawyer or anything like that, so obviously, maybe if a lawyer wants to comment on here, maybe they'll have more clarity on the law. But I'm just giving my interpretation from researching the stuff and my opinion on it. I think it's kind of clear-cut on what the law was representing. I thought the law kind of represented, like, it in general, that it couldn't be moved anywhere outside of the city guidelines. And again, I'm sure the Cincinnati Bengals are watching this as well because, they're in the state of Ohio, so this law could be used on them. This law could be used on the Cincinnati Bengals if they wanted to move as well. And so I'm sure that's going to be something that whoever the governor is going to have to look at. If they want to give tax funding to any of these Ohio sports teams, because it can apply to any of them, not just football teams. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because obviously a lawsuit like this is it's going to be long. It's going to be several years. This is going to be going on while the seasons are going on. So it's going to start right now, but I mean, they're probably going to hear the first hearing like in September or something like that when the new season starts. So this is going to be something that's going to be ongoing while the season's going on. Because again, the judicial system does not work on Roger Goodell's time. It doesn't work on sports time. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't work on that time. Okay, they work on their own time. Okay, so this is going to be something that's going to be going on. It could go to the Supreme Court if Jimmy Haslam wants to go all the way. If he wants to go all the way, I mean, it's going to take probably like 5 years, which probably will be way past the 2028 deadline. Some people are arguing that the Art Modell law, now that it's activated, you need 6 months notice or something to allow local Ohio residents to buy the team. Some people are saying, oh, you're going to have to find a billionaire that has like $6 billion in the bank. I'm almost certain. I mean, I don't know. I don't know all the billionaires in this world, but I have to imagine that there is a billionaire in the state of Ohio that could probably buy the team. I don't know who, but like this whole idea that there isn't, I think is kind of insane. As an argument. Will it get to that? I don't know. If Jimmy Haslam, again, this has never been tested in court. The only time it got close to being tested in court was, ironically enough, Jimmy Haslam was on the other side of the Art Modell law, where he used the Art Modell law to his benefit for a soccer team, which the owner for the soccer team wanted to leave Columbia to move it to Houston, which he was not allowed to do. So they forced him to sell the team, and it ended up going to Jimmy Haslam. Ironically enough. Now, that guy ended up getting an expansion team by the soccer league, which ended up being in Houston. But you get the point. That ended up happening because of the Art Modell law. It didn't go all the way because they ended up giving in because they didn't want to go through the legalities of it. But that's the whole thing. That, if this goes all the way to the Supreme Court, there's a possibility it could get declared unconstitutional. But again, you're looking at a 5-year thing, and you only have until 2028, which is like what, 3-4 years from now. You don't have that long. You don't have all day to do this. And again, the stadium, like to build the new stadium, it's going to take 3 to 4 years. Okay, it's going to take 3 to 4 years. So you're going to need time. You're going to need a temporary stadium to be in. So again, is Jimmy Haslam going to want to wait that long? And again, this is something that Jimmy Haslam and all the other owners that have owned the Cleveland Browns since 1999 knew about. They knew what they were signing up for. This is not like something that Jimmy Haslam just came up his ass and be like, oh, well, I want to do this now and I don't care. And you can't stop me. This is something that he agreed on when he took over ownership of it. This is something that the original 1999 owner when he got the team after he brought the team back to Cleveland. This is something that he agreed to, that he would never move the team out of Cleveland. Okay, he agreed to this. The owner that took over for him after he passed away, same thing. They agreed that they would never move the team out of Cleveland. Jimmy Haslam agreed when he took over ownership. He knew what he was getting into. He knew that the city of Cleveland had the power in this because that was literally how it was set up when the team came back and was revived from the depths of despair and was resurrected in 1999 as a football team. Okay, this was literally something that he knew. So some people are going to say, well, oh, look at all the other owners. The difference between the other owners and those franchises compared to the Cleveland Browns is vastly different because of the agreements that the NFL and the city of Cleveland made in 1999 when this team was revived. Okay? And he knew that. He knew what he was signing up for. So you can't be like, oh, well, it's not fair. He let him do what he wants. You can't use that argument when he knew what he was signing up for. He made the agreements. He agreed to own the team. He agreed to the tax fundings that he gets from taxpayers for having the lease of the Cleveland Browns Stadium. Okay? He knew this. So it's on him. He already knew this. He knew what he was getting into. So it's on him. It's on Jimmy Haslam. And at the end, I think the Browns are probably going to, or not the Browns. At the end of the day, I think the city of Cleveland is going to win. I think they will win this. They have more resources than the Browns do in this because they have the law, they have the government people on their side, and they have the law on the books. They can go for a long time. They can keep this going for a long time. They can delay this for a long time. The Browns don't have that time. They have 3 years? We got the 2025, 2026, 2006. They have 4 years to figure this out. 4 years in football time is not a long time, okay, because of the way the seasons are structured and the way you have to change things, all right? In the judicial system, that could be an eternity, okay? And they don't go on, again, the NFL schedule. They go on the judicial schedule. It's the same thing, for example, with the Denver Broncos a few years ago with the sale of the Broncos. They were trying to figure out who actually had the rights to own the team and whatnot, and all that stuff. They didn't work on the NFL schedule. That's why it took 6 years for them to figure out who was allowed to own the team, if the previous owner was allowed to get it back, or if one of the daughters were able to get it. That's why it took so long, because the judicial system doesn't work on the NFL's schedule. They work on their schedule, okay, not the NFL schedule, which is why, Jimmy Haslam, if he's going to want this, he's going to have to go all the way. He's going to have to go all the way to the Supreme Court. And maybe he gets a favorable ruling because they do have more conservatives on the bench, and probably will by that point as well, whenever they would have a Supreme Court hearing. But again, you're looking at 5-6 years down the road for that to happen. Because the Supreme Court, again, is not going to, they're not going to appease to Jimmy Haslam's schedule, okay? They're going to go on their schedule as well as all the lower courts are. So again, if Jimmy Haslam is really committed to this, he's gonna be waiting a long time, okay? And in football time, you can't wait that long, okay? You know how these owners are. You know how the Roger Goodell is. You know how they operate. They don't want to wait that long, okay? They're impatient. They are impatient. They think they're above the law. Remember, with their whole NFL constitution, right? They have their own little constitution. I still laugh at that, by the way, that the NFL actually has their own constitution. I'm not even kidding. They really do. They have their own constitution, which is why they can, anytime, somebody sues them, right? You see all these former head coaches or owners, whatever. The reason why when they always sue them, or the players too, like Brady and stuff like, anytime when they sue them, it always goes to, NFL, it goes to arbitration, right? It never goes to trial because they have this stupid constitution, which I still don't know how they can overrule everything, but they somehow do. They somehow manage to get away with it all the time. But again, this is ironclad because, again, this is something the NFL agreed with the city of Cleveland back in 1999. And, again, they have this law on the books, in the state of Ohio. It's just not going to happen. Like, I really believe this is not – I really believe this project's going to be dead. I really believe the way the city of Cleveland has Jimmy Haslam right now, I think Jimmy Haslam will eventually give in because he can't wait. He can't wait this long. He can't wait this long. So he might end up just giving in and just being like, okay, fine. What do you want? Because at the end of the day, he's going to rather want to have a team than, have to waste more and more money on legal fees, I think. When he could have been already trying to figure out a new stadium in the city of Cleveland or, renovations on the existing stadium. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on this. Let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear your opinions. And if there is a lawyer that's in here that knows stuff about these situations, I would love to hear it as well. Comment, rate. If you like this video or my reviews, please subscribe, hit the notification bell for the latest content. And that's about it, guys. Thank you. I am the SS Ultimate Goku, and I'm out of here. Peace!